Hi, my name is Pat, and this is my channel, Book Chat with Pat, and I'm glad that you're here. Today is Saturday, June 1st, and I'm going to sum up my weekly reading, which has focused largely on my wrapping up my first reads in Horror Mayhem. As I've said now in many videos, I have read very little horror fiction in my life beyond the 19th century classics and a bit of Stephen King. But I wanted to participate in this event and I wanted to give this genre a try. While I'm never going to read hardcore horror, or anything really disturbing, I have definitely found writers that I enjoy. And I have had so much fun, not only reading these new to me authors, but also interacting with my BookTube friends and commenters who know a lot more about this genre than I do, and who have enjoyed, I think, seeing my getting into something new and dabbling a little bit in this genre. I told Dave and Olive at Book Blather that Amazon and Thrift Books both are now sending me hints and notices about deals on horror books and things that they think that I will like based on what I've read so far. As I've mentioned before, MJ at Reading This Life had recommended to me T. Kingfisher's A House with Good Bones, which I absolutely loved as a good entry point into the genre. And then after I talked about that in a video, Ollie at Criminolly suggested that I might try What Moves the Dead, which is Kingfisher's retelling of Edgar Allan Poe's short story, The Fall of the House of Usher. I also really loved this one, and I reviewed both of these novels already. Next, I moved on to What Feasts at Night. This is the 2024 Kingfisher novel, which is a sequel to What Moves the Dead. I finished this one this week, and while I liked it, I didn't love it the way I loved the first two Kingfisher novels that I read. In What Feasts at Night, we meet up again with the characters that we first met in What Moves the Dead. After the harrowing experience at the House of Usher, Alex Easton, the retired soldier, seeks out their family's hunting lodge in Galicia for a rest. Alex is accompanied by Angus, his trusty assistant and valet, and by Hob, the horse. Eventually, Eugenia Potter, the mushroom expert, also joins the party. Upon arriving at the hunting lodge, they discover that the caretaker, Caudron, has died. People in the village are gossiping about a breath-stealing creature that kills its victims by sucking out their breath. This creature is called a Moroi, a ghostly female figure that steals your breath. Alex is repeatedly visited in dreams by this hellish creature. In fact, all of the conflicts in this novel are fought in this nightmarish dreamscape, though the physical after effects of all of the battles are felt in reality as well. Kingfisher knows how to create atmosphere, and she does it really well in this book and in all of her books, as far as I can tell. The nightmare sequences are also extremely well done. I could almost feel myself gasping for air at times as I read, as this creature was trying to suck out the life breath of Alex. Kingfisher is also quite adept at developing characters and the relationships among the characters. I very much like the way Alex and Angus interact. You get the feeling of real friendship, of great loyalty and respect that each feels for the other. And a little relationship between Miss Potter and Angus also seems to be developing, which I'm thinking is probably going to be developed more in subsequent volumes of this series. I understand there's a part 3 in the works now. So, with all of this positive information about the book, why didn't I like this book as much as I liked the previous 2 Kingfisher novels that I completed? I felt like I never really got the point of the story. I don't know that the motivation for these nightmarish attacks, from this creature was ever fully or clearly developed. In What Moves the Dead, Kingfisher was elaborating on the story that Poe created in The Fall of the House of Usher. I know that Kingfisher knows how to develop her own plot. She certainly did it, and did it well, in A House with Good Bones. But she didn't quite successfully do it here. The atmosphere was great, the characters are delightful, but the story itself was somewhat lacking. It has not turned me off Kingfisher. I think she's really a wonderful writer. And I'm reading one of her earlier novels now, even though Horror Mayhem sadly is over. I've just started The Hollow Places. Bit of a glare here. See if I can get rid of the glare. Which was written in 2020. This one to me feels similar to A House with Good Bones. In this novel, we have a narrator, Kara, who has returned to her family in North Carolina after a divorce. She stays with her uncle, Earl, who owns a storefront museum, which is called the Glory to God Museum of Natural Wonders, Curiosities, and Taxidermy. So you can see the characteristic Kingfisher humor is already evident, as is her delightful ability to build relationships between characters. I already love Uncle Earl and his relationship with his niece, Kara, or Carrot, as he affectionately calls her. In this tourist hotspot, Kara is about to discover a portal that will take her from the museum into a frightening new world where strange, horrifying creatures gather strength from people's fear of them. I'm continuing this book into June, even though we're now on to many other events, and I will report back soon. The highlight of my horror reading week was Ray Bradbury's classic novel, Something Wicked this way comes. This is the second book in the Greentown trilogy. I know that most people read this book at a much earlier time in life than I am at now. Most people probably read this in adolescence. And I am relatively late to the party in terms of reading Ray Bradbury, except for some of his short stories and, of course, for Fahrenheit 451. This novel is a classic in American fiction. It is at once an example of American Gothic, a small town coming of age story, a dark fantasy, a horror novel, and a darkly poetic tale. The language is beautiful and poetic throughout the novel. For instance, the main characters are introduced in the following paragraphs, in which the setting is also established. I just wanted to read a little of this to give a flavor for the language. But one strange, wild, dark, long year, Halloween came early. One year, Halloween came on October 24th, 3 hours after midnight. At that time, James Nightshade of 97 Oak Street was 13 years, 11 months, 23 days old. Next door, William Holloway was 13 years, 11 months, and 24 days old. Both touched toward 14. It almost trembled in their hands. And that was the October week when they grew up overnight and were never so young anymore. So what is it that happens to cause our protagonists to grow up overnight? A strange carnival has come to town, not in the summer when carnivals normally come to town, but in October, 1 week before Halloween. The master of this carnival, Mr. Dark, is the illustrated man in the carnival. He lures unsuspecting victims into the carnival and then draws the life force out of them. A strange carousel operates in this carnival. It runs forward and backwards at great speed, taking riders back or forward in time to their desired age, youth regained, or sudden maturity. The mirror maze of this carnival also captures its victims. Apparently, this carnival has existed for centuries, preying upon people's weaknesses and most intimate desires. The carnival becomes everything we fear in life. Bradbury also masterfully develops characters and the relationships among the characters. Mr. Dark is the quintessential villain. Jim Nightshade and Will Holloway, the 13-year-old adolescent protagonists, are characters that probably most young readers identify with very well. Their relationship reminded me of something that was kind of a cross between Twain's Huck and Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer, and also Harper Lee's sibling protagonists, Scout and Jem from To Kill a Mockingbird. The relationship kind of felt similar to these relationships. The hero of the story, Will's father, Charles Holloway was inspired by Bradbury's own father, Leo. I'm not going to say any more about how Charles Holloway becomes the novel's hero or what it is that he does to save the boys and himself from the effects of this nightmarish carnival. But I will just say that clearly this father remembers and understands well what it is to be a boy and also what it is to be a really good parent. I wish that I had read this book when I was younger, because this is exactly the kind of book I would have fallen in love with as a 13-year-old reader. It is a great credit to Bradbury's skill as a writer that this reader, no longer young or terribly impressionable, entered into the world of this book, and I fell in love anyway. So that's my summary of my final reads for Horror Mayhem. As always, I thank you for watching. I hope that you're doing well. I'll speak with you again soon. Take care.